Let's get into the show. Let's talk a little macro and let's talk about the trend that Circle has kicked off. Because as you can see now, Uphold weighs IPO or sale at $1.5 billion valuation. Things are heating up, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the situation for Uphold, and we got this one courtesy of The Block. The situation for Uphold is very interesting. Digital asset platform Uphold is exploring a potential IPO in the United States or a strategic sale. CEO Simon McLaughlin told The Block the company's board has engaged investment bank FT Partners to evaluate its options, including a listing on the NASDAQ or a possible merger or acquisition with a financial firm or payments firm. Now, this could this is great either way, at least how I'm looking at it. But when you read this article, they definitely dig deeper into the pros and cons for each one of them. If Uphold does take the IPO route, they could get more funding. They would have a broader reach. They could definitely offer more exclusive staking offerings, DeFi opportunities like the ones that they're building with the XRP Ledger and the Flare network. That can now be commercialized, ladies and gentlemen. Perfect example, and we'll dig more into this a little bit later, but Coinbase. You notice how the moment Donald Trump was officially in office, they kicked back on the staking. So did Uphold. Got to watch out for these things. Now, let's say Uphold decides to go the other way. Let's say Uphold decides to sell. Then they would be supported by a major bank or a large financial institution. Now, as I was reviewing the show notes, something popped up in my head that I didn't exactly jot down, but with the relationship that Uphold has with the XRP Ledger, if Ripple wanted to hit a home run, this is who you should be trying to acquire. At least it was my thought until I pulled in a little more research, guys. I'm sure that with you in a second. But of course, if they sell to a larger bank or financial institution, they would also get access to more liquidity, more insurance, which would open the door for potential FDIC backing, similar to a bank or financial institution. It's not something that I'm familiar with seeing often in the crypto space. That's why I added it there. But if you look at the pros and cons of each, or the pros rather, it's sort of a win-win situation here for Uphold. But my question is, the question of the day is, would a string of crypto companies going public usher us into the mainstream? Because it wasn't just Uphold that has expressed their interest. Gemini has also began to put the paperwork in order. And they can move quickly because they already have a lot of leverage on Wall Street. The Winklevoss brothers, yeah, they got pulled. So that made me look at the numbers, ladies and gentlemen. This is just 24-hour volume from the top exchanges and the names who could potentially make this public move. If Binance decided to go public, okay, they're running $19 billion in volume a day, right? Coinbase, 2 billion, Kraken, 1 billion, Circle, 12 billion, just went public. We understand why. Gemini is aiming to go public. That'll definitely increase that 280 million. I added crypto.com here and Binance and Kraken. Well, crypto.com and Binance, because you can see the numbers there. Those are the potential public players, is what I'm getting at. Kraken has even mentioned it in the past before, that the idea would be feasible depending on market conditions. But if you look at these numbers all together, we're north of $50 billion here just in the last 24 hours that's being moved just across these platforms. Now, you may be wondering why the asterisk is next to Uphold's 15 billion. Because to be honest with you, I couldn't get an exact number, right? Masari didn't have the data. CoinMarketCap, which is the largest data aggregator for the space, didn't have the data. Neither did CoinGecko. But Uphold has their financial information on their website. Now, I have only seen that dealing with a traditional financial institution. So there are questions there because the numbers that I actually saw, all right, close to $65 billion. Uphold has already moved $65 billion. I couldn't precisely find whether it was in the last 24 hours, so I dropped an approximate here based on the number that I saw. Point I'm getting at is there is enough money within the top names in the crypto space that if they decided to go public one after another, we'd be undeniable, irresistible by 2030. This entire market would be irresistible. It could genuinely, at least on our end, right? Now, I'm not saying that these stocks, once they go public, would just continue to go upwards, but they would definitely perform quite well. And their positive performance would make the entire crypto industry look even better. Imagine how many more people are going to be interested in the crypto space and willing to invest in the assets that are attached to a lot of these names if they are public. Because what I'm seeing in Circle's move is that now the stable coin is getting recognized more. And again, I genuinely believe that as the stable coin gets more recognition, the public networks that support the stable coins will get more recognition. Now, there's another angle to going public that Uphold didn't really highlight, but I'm going to unpack a little bit here. What happened when Coinbase went public? Okay. They started landing deals with the likes of the NBA, WNBA. Now you see them all over the games. Uphold could begin to pull off the same types of things with the public. I also imagine in the coming months, Circle lined this up perfectly because college football is coming up. NFL season's coming up. I can just imagine some sponsored halftime segments brought to you by Circle. Crypto.com did it all last season with college football. I can just see just a little circle thing right there next to Patrick Mahomes, little graphic, right? That is what you get when you take the public route. Of course, this can also be funded, I assume, by a bank, but you're not really seeing JP Morgan Chase like doing any sponsored sports segments. Okay. So I emphasize that because if we are to be ushered into the mainstream, we're going to have to be attached to mainstream entities already. You don't get more mainstream than sports. So, following the Coinbase example, sponsored sports segments by Circle this football season. Okay, to me, Uphold feels like an MLB. Okay, I could see an MLB sponsorship somewhere in there. That's just my opinion. Uphold has a baseball vibe. Okay, y'all know I'm a big sports fan. So sports fans out there, rock, y'all got to rock with me on this one. But to really bring it home, guys, like I said, it wouldn't just be those names. There are other top exchanges that are looking to enter the U.S., but couldn't because of the previous administration and the previous views of that administration. But if they all began to make the move, guys, it would cause a chain reaction. Crypto.com, to me, is going to be next. They would be next to make this move. It would be a race between Crypto.com and Kraken as far as who's going to go public on the exchange level if Uphold does make this move. I want the public option. I want to see Uphold go public because it will cause a chain reaction. That would be And then Gemini, I can't forget about Gemini, because Gemini has pretty much, as far as everything that I know, made a decision on it. They're locked in. They said, we want to do this. So if Gemini does it, once Gemini does it, if Uphold decides to follow suit, I'm telling you, 2026 will be the year of the IPO, maybe even extending into 2027, where we would see names like Kraken, Crypto.com, Bybit, BitHum. What's the other one? Run by Arthur Hayes. Is it Bitfinex? I think it's Bitfinex, right? And then the big daddy of them all. If Binance goes public, you can't tell me everybody won't be interested in crypto. It won't be on everyone's radar once that happens, because Binance already has a global infrastructure. Binance already has a global infrastructure. So I genuinely think we can wrap with this point here. A run of crypto IPOs will usher this market into the mainstream. So if you're holding while we're underground, which is what we are, I'm going to bring out the rap analogy for you. We underground right now. But the moment one of these big underground entities gets pulled up to the mainstream, what do they say? A rising tide lifts all ships. That's what an IPO run would look like in the crypto space.